Today's guest holds 2 doctorates, 66 educational degrees, has been featured in more than 125 media outlets globally, and has cracked the scientific code to shorten the journey to success. And today he's going to share with you new insights, ideas, and information to double your success in half the time. Would you please help me welcome to the live stream Dr. Raman K. Attri. Wow. Oh, I get shivers every time I look at your website. I was looking at your website again before. Result, credential. I love it. Congratulations and thanks for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure, Daniel. It's a wonderful, always honor with talking to your audience and be on your show. So appreciate you bringing here.
My pleasure. You know, we have values and rules in our house, and the first one is there's always a budget for fashion. When you're married to my wife, you've got to have a budget for fashion. So we say the first rule is you've got to be too cute. You've always got to look your best. And then there's always a budget for education. And we believe heavily in education. And even with our children today, we're starting them on that educational journey really young. My boy, he just turned 5 today. He's got a coach. My daughter, she's got an art coach. She's got an English coach. And so we believe in the power of education. But for a lot of people, learning seems to be a very slow process. So what causes people to learn slowly?
That's a very good question, Daniel. And I think you kind of almost hit the nail, This is one of the things I have been looking as a learning scientist. I mean, we got almost same level of capabilities. We got same human being with the same brain. Why some people tend to learn slow? And I figured out it's not about brain capacity. It's not about brain capability either. I figured that the people learn slow because of the external factors, the ecosystem that's around us. Now, this response might be pretty surprising for some people because in our school, colleges, universities, we have been taught that learning fast is only for few gifted ones, those who are brilliant or genius. But what I found is it has no relationship. You can learn fast as an average person, and you can be far ahead of a person who kind of come across as brilliant. So some of the things which slow down people's learning is, I will talk more from a professional learning standpoint because I think most of the people struggle in the professional world. And in professional world, what we do is we start learning tasks. And we pay attention to the activities, we pay attention to the task, and we start learning every single task. And we feel that, we're going to need to master every single task in order to be successful. But if you see, in a reality, as a professional, as leader, we get paid for outcomes, not for the task. For example, a firefighter, he get paid for putting off the fire, and they get measured for the KPIs, which might look like something like how many fires they have put out, how many lives they have saved. They don't get paid for holding the water hose. So when we start learning the tasks and activities, it is always going to take longer because then it's going to look like a kind of big pyramid you need to conquer. But when you start from the outcomes, then you know that these are the most essential things I need to produce. Several skills you may not even need to master in order to achieve those outcomes. So people who learn slow, they tend to go from task, activity, from other side, trying to produce result. But the people who learn fast, they always go backward from result. And then it basically have a very tiny set of things they need to master to upfront. I'm not saying that you only need to master a few things, but the thing is, this is essential. This I need today to be successful in my job. Remaining things can wait. So master those things which is required for you to become a great performer.
I think that is so important. One of the things that my wife and I look into when we're developing our clients is we have a look at their core competencies. And we often find that people have developed skills that they actually don't get rewarded for in their career. And an example of that is one of the 25 key competencies is coaching and leadership. Now, as a coach and a leader, a lot of people would think that that has to be my number one most highly developed skill. So I've seen people put a lot of resource into learning how to coach and how to lead. But when they're developing their business, they haven't built those interpersonal skills. So they deliver all this technical knowledge.
Yeah.
But the number one thing that helps them get the business is the interpersonal skills. And oftentimes we see the interpersonal skills all the way down the bottom. So they go through a whole year of studying the wrong things, only to learn a year later that it actually wasn't all that important. And I've seen that year after year. But I personally probably didn't figure that out till I was 35. And it was only of a chance encounter with a doctor from San Diego that she showed me how to identify the key skills for success in my role. And then I learned later on we should be having conversations with our leader about what are the key competencies, what are the most important skills for me to learn, and what ones shouldn't I be putting attention or energy into.
Yeah.
So for those people who haven't had a mentor to get them to that place where they have that conversation, what can they start doing now to be able to identify what's important and what's less important? What can they start to do?
Yeah. I typically recommend, in fact, you already kind of answered that the criteria in your question itself. So I kind of extend that one a little bit, that I tell that, okay, if you don't have a coach or mentor, if you want to do it yourself, and you know that you're getting overwhelmed because you're trying to learn too much. And entire learning is not going to transfer in performance. So when we look at skills and competencies, number one is what's the most important, and number two is what's the most frequent. Frequent means competencies. If you're going to use after 6 months, you don't need to master it now. So what is most frequent, which is you're going to use right away out of the door? Mean you're going to meet a client, you're going to need to handle certain situation right away. Those are the competencies most frequent. We need to identify that one. And number three is the most influential or most impact making. That means there are certain skills or competencies that's going to influence your outcome right away. But then there are certain skills which you, even if you master it, its impact or influence in changing your outcome is very little. If impact is very little, perhaps learning and mastering that competency can wait. So if you focus on the most important, most frequent, and most influencing competencies, you will then be able to, I think, scrap out probably 50% of the content you don't have to master. And imagine once you do that, your time to mastery is gonna almost gonna go in half as well.
I can see there just how much time I could save. And I was reading books from age 19. And I always learned that I should be reading these books from cover to cover. But sometimes I found exactly what I needed in the first chapter. And then it felt like a slow death reading the next 12 chapters. And internally I felt guilty because I thought, I've bought this book. It's $15. I got to get my $15 worth. And even if I'm not having fun, I got to read it from cover to cover. And I went through that experience and I had an inner conflict for many years because I thought to myself, I've got the book. I've done what they've said to do. I've now found the exact thing that I'm looking for. But then I have this feeling of guilt that I've got to go from cover to cover. And by the time I got from cover to cover and procrastinated and delayed and felt guilty, I didn't even want to go back and apply that skill anymore because the learning had become such a traumatic experience for me. I was like, if I apply it, it's going to feel bad. Is this common and do other people experience this type of learning experience?
I guess it varies. It depends upon your preference. Preference in the sense that when you get on to learning, you always have certain ideas why you want to learn and how you want to learn. And when you feel that you are not doing justice with that particular goal what you have, you can most likely feel bad. So that's, I think, the number one thing, you're doing it right. Because when you start learning, many people don't actually create the goals or outcomes they want for a certain specific learning. For example, reading a book, what is the outcome we expect? Do we want to read for pleasure, or is there any specific outcome? When you have an outcome in mind, you will know probably out of 12 chapters, only two are relevant to your outcome. And when you read those two, it's going to do much better wonder for you compared to reading all the 12 chapters. So I think being selective based on your goals and outcome and results you want to produce in your workplace or in your profession will always save you time. It will save you the guilt that you didn't learn everything, because the thing is, you don't have to learn everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when I found those ideas, I felt good. It was like I got that dopamine spike, I got a bit of adrenaline, I got a bit of a serotonin rush, and I felt good. But then maybe it was something to do with the inner programming, starting what you're finishing. And maybe it's an Australian thing, because you know what Australians do? They get in their car and they say, we're going for a weekend drive. And you ask them, where are you going? They say, I don't know, I'm just going for a drive. So Australians drive with no destination in mind. And the problem with Australia, like we did when we were 18 and 19, you could drive 800 kilometres over the weekend in one direction, and then you'd go for a surf. And when you got tired, you'd turn around and go back. But you never knew. They call it walkabout in Australia. You just go walkabout.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned environment before, and if we were to have a look at all your credentials, and I just want to map them out once again, because some people are going to say there's got to be something special about Dr. Rahman. Maybe he's got double the brain processing speed. Maybe his brain's an extra pound heavier than everyone else's. Maybe there's something about you that you've got and we don't have. So let's list it out. 66 educational degrees, not one, but two doctorates, 23 certified designations, 30 international certifications, 23 books authored, 125 media outlets that you've been featured in. So these are some phenomenal results. And what we're seeing is we're seeing the climb at the moment. But where did you start from? Were you born with something special that we don't have, that we should be jealous of, that gave you an unfair advantage? Where did you start from?
I did have something which gave me probably unfair advantage, but it is not something people should feel jealous about. It's when I was born. I was born in a very poor family. In a remote part of India, there was no facilities. Even the nearest schools were about maybe several kilometers away. So soon after my birth, probably within 5 or 6 months, I contracted polio virus, and my leg, one of my legs got paralyzed, and that was the time when I lost my ability to walk like normal kids. Well before reaching that age, you can say. So now that has a big imprint on the way I have grown out in my life, and the way I have been doing things. It has been tough world for me, and the number one thing I could rely on is learning. And that's where the learning became my mantra. So my thought process was something like this: that if I can't walk faster, perhaps I can walk faster in something else. And that something else turned out to be learning. And I used it as my weapon, because I thought, this is what is gonna allow me to make the mark in the world. And it did. But in that process, I started loving the learning so much. But at the same time, I found that our teachers, our coaches, our the professors, they don't teach us how to learn better and faster. And then I looked around, tried to find some help. I couldn't find any help. You wouldn't imagine, I read every single book which says speed up your learning in some shape or form, but nothing worked. I said, you know what? There has to be a better way. So then it became my personal mission to understand how people learn, how I can help them learn better. So I think my beginning started from there. But during that journey, I kind of earned a lot of credential by applying those techniques which I experimented. So it was my way of understanding as a scientist, does it really work?
You mentioned environment and earlier on, and the environment that you grew up in, there was physical challenges for you. So you couldn't keep up with them with the walking pace, but you were able to do something different with your mental capacity. And I just brought something up here. There's an author many years ago by the name of Napoleon Hill, and he wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, and I think it's a very popular book in our community. And he also talks about environment. And what he says, in environment, it's crucial to have a mentor. A mentor will raise your standards. A mentor will not let you get complacent. Finding a mentor will spark your mind because they are playing the game at a higher level than you. So thinking about the educational environment. So most of us, we go to school from K to 10, maybe to 12 and beyond. At school, do they teach us how to learn? Are they teaching us how to learn? I know they teach us what to think, but do they teach us how to learn in these environments?
Actually, you're right. They in the school, colleges, even at workplace, even in our business settings as an organization and all that, they focus mostly on teaching us subject matter or the content. They don't teach us how to learn the learning. So there is a science behind how do you learn anything. It's not necessarily one particular subject. So content doesn't matter, but I think there is no focus from that angle. I always keep saying that we should have teachers whose job is to teach how to learn, not a specific content, because learning itself is a profession. It's a kind of discipline. A huge amount of research has been done. Then why don't we teach our kids from K1 that, okay, we're going to have this particular 1 hour every day we're going to spend on techniques to learn, but they don't do. And then when we go to high school, when we go to colleges, universities, they don't do that. They dump a lot of content, a lot of stuff on us, and then we figure out, okay, you know what, maybe the things are better in the professional world, but it's not. And that's where I think we got to have some good mentors. As you said, environment, think and grow, also advocate this thing that thinking is not necessarily an internal process. Thinking get triggered from external triggers created by your coaches or mentors. You might remember that Michael Gladwell wrote a book about talent is overrated. So talent overrated, he's kind of indicated that it's all about practice and what kind of a framework your coach is going to give you. And that drives your excellence. That drives your world-class expertise. It's not talent. So from that angle, environment, how you use resources around you, how you use coaches, how you use the external trigger to process the things, that matters in learning and learning faster.
This triggered a thought. When I was learning to wakeboard, we would go down to the cable ski park and there was a coach there. Now, he claimed that he was a coach. We knew he could do a couple of tricks that we couldn't do. So we thought, well, he's a coach. Maybe we should ask him how to do the trick. So we would go and ask him how to do the trick. And the advice was, just go big. And I said, well, what's that got to do? And he goes, you just got to go big. And I say, well, what's that? He goes, you just got to huck it. I'm like, well, what's that? So people were taking this advice of just go big, but there was nothing in there that would help you denominalize and put the trick back into a process. It was just this concept of just go big. And so people would go out there with this concept of just go big, but there was no strategy. And that's what got me into my coaching journey. When I was about 14, 15, I started to coach, and people used to ask me, they'd say, Daniel, I want to do this trick. Can you break it down for me? And so I could look at these tricks and break it down into 3, 5, maybe even 7 little steps. And it wasn't always that they needed to learn all 3 or 5 or 7 steps. Sometimes they had the first, second, and third step right, the 5th and the 6th, but it was just that little bit in the middle. And when I was able to give them the advice on just what to do there, they were able to land that trick. And so the people who were in our environment, which was our boat, who were getting expert advice, were succeeding so much faster. And it was interesting that they didn't have to ride as much or as often as the other people. The other people were almost exhausting themselves to get a result, but these people just seemed to get it easy because they just got that 1 or 2 things that they actually needed to work on. So it's quite interesting. Here, this other thing that it says in the book, it says, if you hang around 5 confident people, you'll be the 6th. If you hang around 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th. If you hang around 5 broke people, you'll be the 6th. So, in our community, we want you to spend time with millionaires and we want you to spend time with confident people. And to do that, you've got to get the right knowledge and you've got to get it from the right source. So, Dr. Rahman, for our community members who want to start to get into a better environment, what resources have you got to share with them today that they can start to learn how to learn properly so they can reduce that, what's the word? The speed to proficiency and succeed faster. What can you share with them today?
Yeah, so they can actually go to my website, get-there-faster.com. And if they go to the shop menu, they will see that I have put tons of resources there. I'm going to be putting about 100 ebooks there. Right now, I think there are about 10 and pretty nominal pricing. And one of the ebook is free. They can, it's for your audience, and it's called 10 Ineffective Practices That Slow Down Your Learning. They can download right away, and it's going to be pretty useful in regards to some crux of the things which I talked about today, and very quick tips there which they can follow in their life. That's one. Other than that, I do have a bi-weekly masterclass which I run for 2 hours, and there are on different topics on like mindset. It is available. You can probably go to the shop menu. Yeah, you got here. So I got online courses which are kind of available there. It's a pre-recorded. I have close to about 700 videos which are gonna get translated into about 400 courses. So it's going to be every week there is going to be new course release. So it's a tons of things. If you see, there are things about mindset. There's going to be things about your learning. And then you also got a mentoring and coaching program if you want to go to the depth. But if you want to start small, you can look for ebooks. You can click on ebooks and white papers. And then you will see that there are tons of ebooks on different topics. These are professionally done ebooks. And some of you might know that I'm one of the leading instructional designer in the world. So I designed my books in a way that people can learn. And then there are a couple of free, every week I'm planning to have a free webinar. And I'm going to give a lot of values. And if people want, they really want to learn some great tips, some of the tips I shared today. But there is endless things I got for you. So touch base with any of these things and get started. And if you don't want to get started with something, just subscribe and you're going to get the update on what's available. And perhaps something is going to click on your way someday.
Do it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make I want to admit to something. I'm lazy. And laziness is not a bad thing. Laziness is a form of intelligence. It's like if you have electric windows in your car. That was invented out of laziness because somebody said, I'm sick of winding the windows down all the time. I want something that's easier. So if you feel that learning is difficult, but you want to accelerate it and you want learning to be easy, make sure you go to Dr. Rahman's website, gettherefaster.com. I'll put the link to the website in the show notes. But if you're passionate about learning, if you love to learn and you want to become a subject matter expert, you want to get in the right environment and you want to cut down your time of success by 50% and get there twice as fast, make sure you start to follow the work of Dr. Raman K. Attri. Go to the website, register for his next upcoming masterclass, and you'll learn so much. Dr. Rahman, thank you so much for being here with us today. I know you're an incredibly busy man, and I appreciate the time that you've got for our community. We'll post the show notes here. And ladies and gentlemen, happy birthday, big boy. He's turning 5 today.
Oh, that's great.
He must have come to register for the webinar. So head over there now, click the link, and join the next webinar. Dr. Rahman, thank you so much for being here with us today. And we look forward to seeing you again shortly.
Certainly, Daniel. My pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, one new idea at the right time is enough to make you rich. Click that link now. Go to Dr. Rahman's website, gettherefaster.com. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.